All right, hey everybody. Welcome to our recording live stream of
Wink, wink.
our Elders of the RuneStone live. Not live recording, but we're so excited to be here together. So I want to introduce everybody participating tonight. We've got Quinn Johnson, creator and writer of Elders of the RuneStone, myself, Robert Atkins, co-creator of the series, and professor at the Savannah College of Art and Design, where I was able to meet Naomi Skye. So Naomi, welcome and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you
Um,
for having me.
yeah, it's so awesome to see you again. So we've had the wonderful opportunity to work with Naomi over the past couple of years, and really it's been a little while since you worked on the series with us. But when you first started working on Elders of the Runestone with us, I believe you were still, I was like, I had you in class a few times, and
Hmm.
um, of course, I knew how awesome your work was. I was really excited for the opportunity to suggest your work to Quinn, and ultimately it was kind of Quinn's decision as far as like what artists to bring onto the series. And
Hmm.
so Quinn hired you on. Um, if you don't mind, kind of for everybody who's kind of getting a chance to watch this, if you could introduce yourself as far as like stuff that you had kind of worked on and things that the kind of the style that you like to do and like to work on, and then how had that kind of prepared you for what we were asking you to do, working on, you know, multiple issues of a series.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And maybe
Uh-huh.
just sorry, this is just a thought that popped in my head
No,
too.
you're good.
Maybe talk too about like what some of your major influences were with your artwork what really inspired you and that kind of thing too.
Yeah. So, I mean, even from like a young age, I've always had a big thing for art. When I was little, there's actually a really cute home movie of me watching a bunch of like old cartoons and like the old X-Men. And my favorite story that I ever tell is like my two older sisters, they're sitting down and my dad's got his little janky camera like zooming into way too close and he's going around and Sierra's like my older sister, she goes, when I grow up, I'm gonna marry Prince Charming. And then my sister's like, well, I'm gonna go marry Beast. And then I turn around and I'm like, I need to go marry Nightcrawler. And I like this big smile. And so like even like I could barely even talk back then, but yeah, comic books just so present in my life all the time. And for a while I went into fine art and did things like church mural paintings and portraiture and still lives and things like that, which I really still enjoy making. But at the heart of it, I was like, even though I really like these still images, I want to create a bigger narrative. And I just felt like something was missing. So that's when with my one of my best friends, Rain Pavasco, which Atkins has also had,
Yeah,
was like, well, you should go to SCAD. They have a comic book degree that you can do. And I was like, you can get a degree in comics.
I know.
That's
Like,
exactly what I thought too.
and now I have an MFA in comics. But yeah, so going to SCAD really changed my life in terms of moving art into a direction that was far more narrative based and just actually telling a story, which you can do with fine art, but I feel like there's so much more that you can put together in the second by second instead of a larger, think piece that fine art often has. So my major influences, aside from comic books, is also anime and video games. I love them a lot. I love a lot of media that comes from Japan, not just anime and manga. Takeshi Miike films, if you guys have watched those, like Tetsuo the Iron Man, stuff like that, which is really campy B horror. It's also a huge inspiration of mine. So just a bunch of things like that. I love survival horror and horror as a genre. So when we got to put little pepperings of elements in Elders of the Runestone, that was so
Yeah.
exciting for me.
Yeah.
Um, but
That's the
yeah,
kind of stuff
so
that super creeps me out. So I was glad you were working. Quinn knows it. He keeps writing that stuff in, and I'm like, "Ugh." I was like, why do we have to go? Like, no thanks.
that's the real reason you hired me, just so Atkins wouldn't have to draw it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
That's awesome.
there's that. And because of my love for those sorts of styles, because I think one of my strongest suits is I can adapt to a variety of styles, that helps a lot, especially with doing the sort of comic work that I do, as well as what I do as an art director for a small game company that's just launched called Sad Lad Studios. And we are working on a visual novel right now that has a lot of influences from both Western and Eastern media. And it's a little bit of like everything in terms of like a Ghibli influences, but there's a little bit of mystery and intrigue. There's a little bit of horror in it. So, learning what I've learned from working on the Elders of Runestones, as well as what I've done in my past as like concept artist for smaller studios and stuff like that, really helped me to what I'm doing today. So I'm actually really grateful for Elders of the Runestone.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, congratulations too on that position and on being
Thank you.
able to talk about. I guess this is pretty new that you can announce it, right?
Yeah, so we're trying to launch our Steam page for it and in the works with talking with bigger companies for publishing it.
Mhm.
There's a lot of jargon going around, so it's hard to talk about it in terms of like, oh, well, we're doing this part of like the vertical slice, but then the prototype's going to be out, an XYZ date.
Yep.
But yeah, we're just really excited because we finally get to start sharing it with the world instead of being like, we're doing something really cool, I promise. But it's
Yeah. How that goes, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
really interesting because I've been talking to a lot of my students now about the whole world of visual novels, that it's a way to do visual storytelling, and it's
Mhm.
like on the rise as far as like a whole medium, just that a lot of times they weren't considering until just a few years ago, as like it was like comics. And then in maybe the past 5 to 7 years, like vertical scroll comics has been booming and
Mhm.
more of an industry and different than your typical paginated, traditional comics. And then now like visual novels. And of course, the medium of a visual novel of two characters popping up on screen and dialogue
Mhm.
boxes has been around since, JRPGs, it's just like
Yeah.
ever as a video game component. But something like a dating sim or something, being something that you could play and download and people be interested in. Um, that's definitely kind of growing, and that you could tell a story that way, and do all
Mhm.
the illustrative components and deliverables is definitely something our students can do. And now, it's awesome to kind of see, you grow into that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fascinating that how like much just art in the illustrative term translates into so many aspects because it's I mean such a visual medium that it's not uncommon for someone with an illustration degree to go into game design or vice versa
Yeah.
because when you're designing these stylized characters, oftentimes I feel like it'd be really hard to get into something that has a lot of like neoclassical paintings as the characters for like a 2D visual novel, unless it
Oh,
was for a gag, which I would play.
It would be kind of, but yeah.
Yeah, but the stylization and the modernity of it really draws people in. And so having that sequential background to be able to make these stylized characters and make sure it's just good all around. I don't know how else to describe it.
Mhm.
It's really
yeah.
fun.
That's really cool. Well, one of the things that we, talking about when we brought you on to Elders of the Runestone, it was interesting because we had just kind of finished up the first collected book, which collected issues 1, 2, 3, and 4, which really kind of introduced the characters. They introduced the main characters for those who are new, Scott and Jenny and Dane and Kat and Zenith. They'd gotten their supernatural abilities. They'd kind of met each other, kind of gotten a kind of a surface level introduction to each other and kind of their backgrounds and their personalities, a bit, and then kind of had to pull together to got introduced to their new abilities and kind of had to pull together for this crisis of this new first kind of crisis, these new enemies with the Vegas gang, and then had to have this big battle with them in the last part. And so they were pulled together as this newfangled team. That's an old man word. And that was where things ended up with the first book. Well, then, the task that we brought you on was for issues 5, 6, 7, and 8, which is collected book 2, which is what we're doing the Kickstarter about. And that was a cool chapter of the story because this is where you're getting deeper into these characters. You're getting now that we've
Mhm.
had the surface you've kind of got introduced to the characters. Now we're getting deeper into their lives. You're getting deeper into their relationships as they're getting more used to each other. They're getting more used to their powers. They're developing their abilities. They're getting deeper into the mystery of what this runestone was, why they got these abilities, what more can their powers do, but also deeper into the mystery of what is this deeper conflict that we're getting involved in? Who's this guy, the monolith? Like, who is he really? And what's his bigger plan? And they don't even know who the monolith is for a long time in the story, and what are these other conflicts we're getting drawn into, and they kind of get deeper into the ongoing danger that they're really facing, but also like their relationships are developing, and then you get a deeper view into each of their personal lives and their family situations, and all these deeper things, which I love. This is where I really like to deeply explore all these different things. And so
Hmm.
when we brought you in, we were really attracted to your art style, where you really capture, and I love that you brought up, like, the anime stuff that you loved, because we love that stuff too, and it was cool. We were really drawn to that with at least the samples that you that we looked at, that you had, was
Hmm.
you had a bit of that influence in your art, and it really captured we were really drawn to that, kind of the real emotion and the personalities of the characters, and that you would bring that to the characters at this stage of the story, where they're really getting deeper into this side of the characters. And I like the action too, of course, the action and all
Hmm.
the stuff, but that this is a part of the story where you're really getting deeper into this side of the characters, and where we really wanted the readers to empathize with these characters and say, man, these are, like with Dane, the first, yeah. And even me as the writer, I'm reading back over the first story, like, I'm like, this guy's the worst. Like, you usually want to punch him in the face. But in the second story arc of what's in Collected Book 2, you really get to see deeper into who he is and why he's the way he is. And you're like, gosh, I really start to feel for this guy and what he's dealing with and why he is the way he is, and some of the stuff that and some of the other characters too. And so I was really drawn to your ability with your art style, to really see into their eyes and see into their hearts and souls, and really be like, man, these guys have been through some stuff, and they're as the story goes on, you're like, man, these guys are going through some rough things, and for them to be there for each other when some romance stuff starts to happen, to really be able to capture some of that stuff and be like, oh man, I really am rooting for these people. And anyway, so you are totally the right fit for all this, and you captured this stuff so beautifully, and so it was such a pleasure to work with you on all these things, and uh and then of course all the spooky horror stuff too was just awesome. I love working on that stuff, because the series has a lot of that stuff. That's why when Robert and I were discussing, like, okay, how do we kind of brand this, for people that are new to the series, like when we were branding this Kickstarter, when we were pitching it to publishers and whatnot, what's some of the ways we can kind of, if we were to describe the series in just a couple lines, what would we compare it to? So that's why we started saying, hey, it has a lot in common with, like, Stranger Things,
Hmm.
in a way, with the supernatural side, the teenager side, the teenagers kind of having to work together, and kind
And
of
there was
the.
like initial, pushback here. And I tell you what, as we're chatting, let's go ahead and have Naomi, if you want to go ahead and share
Oh
your
yeah,
screen,
yeah.
if you don't mind
Yeah, sure,
drawing.
sure.
It's probably more interesting than just seeing me and Quinn's head.
My head is very interesting.
So this is a big part of, like, we're just really drawn to Naomi's work, and
Yeah.
um it'd just be real fun to kind of watch you sketch and draw. But um we kind of knew that obviously, like, the superhero market is just really saturated, and you've got to be doing something incredibly different if you're going to compete in the superhero market. And um
Definitely.
it's unfortunately the only way to kind of do that nowadays is to show like a superhero that is like broken, or like i- incredibly violent, or like the anti-hero, or I don't know, disregards humanity almost. Um,
Hmm.
and that's obviously not the direction we're going with what we want to do. So we couldn't pitch our stuff or brand it as a way that, as soon as you hear, hey, it's a teenager with powers, obviously that's been around since the 60s.
Hmm.
So that doesn't sound like anything new at all. So we can't pitch RuneStone as like, hey, this is anything like superheroes, even
Mhm.
though it's these teenagers who gain some supernatural abilities and then kind of want to do good with it. So we see that there's this underlying theme that's very similar. Um, so it does have these interesting supernatural um, themes as well, but there are these kind of intense, we keep saying horror, but it's not like extreme horror or anything like that, but it does have these pretty intense moments and some like very suspenseful moments, and there are people that certainly die in this book,
Hmm.
there's violence, and it's, it kind of depicts that, like, hey, if these were uh people, especially the antagonists with serious abilities and, you know, harmful intent, like they'd just wade through people pretty quick, right? They would,
Yeah.
and Naomi got to draw a lot of that.
Hmm.
um and so I think there's some great storytelling that happens where, you can allude to that without it having to be gruesome.
Right.
um,
Hmm.
and you get the point. So I think those are powerful pages. But I'm curious to hear from Naomi. Me and Quinn have talked a lot, but so Naomi, like, what were some of, like, either your favorite characters to draw?
Oh yeah.
What were some of, like, your favorite scenes to draw as you worked through those issues?
Oh man, there's so many to choose from. I think what ultimately like drew me to Elders of the Runestone is, sort of what you're talking about, where there is the unique element of what I like is how I feel like it's a lot more grounded in reality as a superhero teenager, where, you have those scary parts where people die, but that's, sort of part of reality. And it makes me almost think of the beginning of Into the Spider-Verse, where so many people, it's, predominantly for its kids, but there's so many adult themes to it that just push reality because Peter Parker dies right in the beginning of the first Spider-Verse, and you're like, oh, he's dead. Like,
Yeah.
and sometimes the villains just get, that intense. They're dealing with actual dangerous people, which shows the stakes instead of, having something like a Scooby-Doo villain that's like, rats, if it wasn't for you darn teenagers, I would have gotten away with this. There's no that. You
Yeah.
don't really get that in this series, but at the same time, there's a tastefulness to it where you're not being, gory or graphic just for the sake of it for shock value, which, some people that draws people in, some people like that. I'm a horror fan, so I understand when certain things have that aspect, but I feel like when you truly try to make a more universal story, at least to the people that you're thinking that the story is for, there's a really nice aspect of, just making sure that there's a balance where are you doing this because you want to make a gory story or are you trying to tell a narrative? That makes
Mm.
sense.
Yeah.
So that's ultimately what drew me in, as well as just the fact that the characters are far more than just an archetype. Like, yes, you have the girl that's like really smart and brainy and good with like technology and she loves anime and, cartoons and things like that. But, the cheerleader isn't just like the cheerleader and she's not always like whatever. She has her own problems and she doesn't want to necessarily listen to the clique that's around her and her friends because she's slowly starting to understand that there's a little bit more to life than just high school. And I like that instead of being like, a lot of shows and even in comics before, the turn of like the more modern comics, there was a lot of, yeah, they're in high school. Okay, now let's go to the next scene where they're, fighting King Croc or something like that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that a lot. I think some of my favorite scenes were drawing the horror, but more than that, I like the interpersonal moments where, they're deeply talking to each other, like Scott and Kat on the bed, just, really connecting to each other as, human beings and just growing with each other. I really love scenes like that. And I think that's what a lot of modern audiences want out of their comics, not just here's an archetype, here's a villain. All right, let's see how they overcome it. There's so much more to the narrative now because people are looking through, the thousands and thousands of stories that already have that. So it's nice having that unique aspect.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool to hear you say that. And thanks. As the
Yeah.
writer. That's the writer. It's nice to hear you say that. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, and you captured all that beautifully. You just captured
Well, thank you.
the characters so well and the emotions so well, and it was so rewarding to see these I mean, because again, these character moments are moments that were in my mind and my heart for years and years, and then to see you bring them to life so powerfully was just so rewarding and so cool. I was gonna say too, like, it was really cool uh to also see, when we collaborated, it was really cool to see you often when we would talk through scenes, and then you would there were so many times when you would take the script as I had it written originally, but then we would talk through the scenes, and you'd be like, actually, what if instead I drew it like this? Your script originally said this, but what if I drew it like this and had the characters doing this instead? Or you draw something and I'd be like, oh man, I really like that you had the character adding this, you added like an extra gesture or an extra little thing that they were doing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like so awesome. Like I didn't even think about the character doing this little thing, and it added so much to the character. And it was so on character for these characters and added so much to the scene. And there were so many
Mhm.
times you did that. So it was so cool because it was like two storytellers working together and collaborating and making the scene so much better. Um, like I love just the part, the part that I always just think of immediately is after they had this big, huge battle and they barely survived with their lives, and Dane is like knocked out, and he's like the big tough guy is all knocked out, and Gar is like, Scott Gar is like holding him like a sack of potatoes under his arm. The big macho guy is just like hanging there like a baby, he's holding him, and then Jenny is just like, oh, okay, I can't not take a picture of this. And so she like takes a picture of her like with the two of them, and she's like making the little like
I
the face,
remember that.
and it's one of my favorite panels in all of it. And then I'm like, oh, that's so Jenny, and you added some extra stuff to it that wasn't in the script, and it just made me so happy, and it just makes me wonder how she's going to use that, how she's going to leverage that photo later. Yeah. Um, but yeah, it was just so cool. So you just added so much to it, and yeah, I mean, it was just a pleasure have you as a part of the team for that whole time, and you're just a dream to work with too the whole time.
Oh, that
Um,
warms my heart to hear.
yeah. So I'm trying to think too, like what were some of your favorite parts about working with Naomi, Robert?
I think it was really just you were certainly the first kind of student that I had that we had a chance to work with professionally outside of school. So it's just getting a chance because I mean when I was a student at SCAD, I had gone to SCAD for my master's degree, kind of similar to you, and so I had old John Lowe, right? So John Lowe is my
Oh,
professor.
John.
Old John Lowe, it's how we refer to him. And so he was my professor as a student, and right before I graduated, he had introduced me to Randy Green, who's still a great friend and a huge influence on my work. And he had, so John knew him and introduced me, and Randy had kind of hired me to do some backgrounds for him. And that was kind of my first introduction into the industry. And so that was right before I graduated. And um, so after I graduated, I started working with Randy and all those studio guys, Rick Ketchum and Chris Walker, a number of other people. And then, so I always kind of, and I always knew I wanted to teach, but I wanted to kind of gain that industry experience first. So when I got a chance to go back to SCAD and start teaching, um, it was never like, okay, as soon as this ultimate plan to like set students up for um, career opportunities, even though obviously that's what we want to do, it's amazing how it just naturally happens. Like that's just this isn't like a infomercial for SCAD or anything. This is just generally it's just the way that it's kind of set up, when you have professors that are professionals, we have this professional network or there's professional opportunities. And then of course we're surrounded by these awesome students who are creatives and developing and so excited about the industry that they want to get into. And you can't help but think, oh, it'd be great to work with them, or I would be really excited to help have uh to play a part in getting them an opportunity somehow, just to help them get a start or a leg up in what they want to do.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of happens naturally. And so we knew I was never going to be able to keep drawing Elders of the Runestone as much as I would like to. Just I love the characters, just like anybody who works on the book, which is it's infectious. Like we've been talking about, the characters feel very real, and there's a reason for it because Quinn just puts his heart and soul into the characters, and so many of them are influenced by experiences that he's had in his life and people that he's known, and of course he's just a great storyteller, and so a lot of that empathy comes through um in how he tells a story. And so the longer you get a chance to work on these characters, that you kind of grow to love them for that reason. And like surface level, I think when you look at Elders of the Runestone, you say like, oh, it's just an action adventure book, or it's kind of a superhero teen book or something like that. I think it's those who just pass it off as that, as a glance or a trope, I think are doing a disservice to how deep the characters are.
Mhm.
And I think it's for anybody who gives it a chance and will give it a read through, then you really see that heart, that Quinn's put into it. And so yeah, like we've been talking about, we knew I wasn't going to have the schedule to work on it, and we wanted somebody who could do justice to the characters. And so I was excited to suggest you for it, because like I saw your draftsmanship ability and your storytelling ability, and yeah, you were definitely the first student that I had a chance to work with, like outside of like I had you in class, and I still remember that one-page story you drew of me like dissolving.
Yeah.
um that'd be funny to show, but like um I think that was like 501. I think that was like the first, or 503, whatever that class was. But like when you first started, that was funny. So we we had a number of classes together, and then it just became, are you pulling it up? That'd be awesome. See if you can find it. So that was like
I think I
early.
can find it.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
I
like a
know
long
it's somewhere.
story about process or something like that.
I feel like I just saw it too.
It dissolved.
No.
It's not. Here it is.
Oh gosh, this is it.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that's
this is
right.
so old.
Yeah, it's really old, but it's so good. I love how you change styles through it. So you're basically saying like, why do we even need this class? And he's like, it can't be that important. I'm like, fool. And I was like, if you take away all the things of storytelling, then all it goes away, right? And like, then what are you? You're like a BuzzFeed comic. No, worse. Like what? Like images? No, even worse. Like you see, production methods. So that's what the class was, production methods. And we're talking about everything that
Mhm.
goes into a comic, right? So you refine the sequential narrative to publication basics, and even stopping time and death. I don't think that's right. And like it's all dissolving, and stylistically, we're just like falling apart. What's happening to this comic? It's like the rest of my classmates. Is that Arya in the background?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
Arya
think
was
that's
in
supposed
like,
to be Robin too.
oh, that's
That's
so
funny.
great, Arya. So, what's happening to this comic, anyways? It's getting really awful and sketchy. I've taken away the methods of production. No inks, no polish, not even anatomy. Oh, I've taken the coloring too. Oh my God. No panels, lines, or lettering or bubbles. Like, why are you doing this? This comic. Nah, just add some bits and smoke, or smoke and bits. It'll be fine. That's always my solution to everything. The class, everybody just crying in the end. It's just stick figures.
That's so good.
I love
Okay, so I
that.
gotta ask that part where he's like, "Fool." Is that a reference to Soul Eater? And
Yes.
oh yeah, whoa! I knew that one. That's so good.
I love Excalibur. It's one of
Oh,
my
me
favorite
too. Oh my
characters.
gosh,
For
amazing.
the longest time, I had I think it's like the fourth or fifth panel where I'm just like this, and it's like that little chibi head. I had that as my avatar for my Zoom,
Oh.
and
Oh, that's so great.
I forgot that was. So whenever we'd have a faculty meeting, then that I was like Robert Atkins, and I'd be like, hey, and then
And
we
he's
had
like,
like
"Fool."
we had like a fool. I know I did have the fool one for a long time. It's like fool. As soon as like all of 2020, they'd be like, okay, everybody, welcome to Sequence 741. It'd be like, fool. And it's like, oh. And I forgot that was on there. And then we had a full SCAD faculty meeting. And they're like, who's this Robert Atkins? I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, duh. And I took it off real fast.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
Oh, that's funny.
But
That's
anyway, yeah. So it just, I don't know. I just thought that's kind of like my special connection working with Naomi, is just like, you are the first. You're the very, very first student that I've had a chance to work with professionally outside of school, and I'll never
I'm
forget.
honored.
Awesome.
Yes. Oh, yes. And Naomi, anyone watching this, who's looking for our people to hire, Naomi was an absolute dream to work with. She's just an amazing, not only is she an amazing artist, but she is just like an amazing, amazing, kind, wonderful person and amazing work ethic and just a charming, wonderful person. And her smile dazzles, as you can see.
Naomi's like, man, we should do more of these.
Well, I guess I can stay longer.
Yeah, it's like, I did have to go, but man, let's keep doing this. So, what are you working on?
No,
So,
I
yeah.
think God.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I'm still working on, I have my own personal shop that does quite well. It's my main source of income right now, aside from doing art directing, but we are starting, me and a couple of my friends, we got the LLC all taken care of. It's built from the ground up at this point. We've got our website all set. We are just waiting on certain companies that want to potentially fund our game, which is quite a hefty amount to get a game to go off the ground, especially ones with the caliber that we're designing, because they're very, very involved games. They're not just like simple little point and click visual novels. It's got a 3D overworld. It's got multiple different characters that you can interact with. There's several different endings. It's kind of like a murder mystery. It makes me think of Studio Ghibli met Twin Peaks. It's like
Oh,
our flagship title. It's a very interesting, blend of two different things. And I'm very excited as our flagship title for that to go forward. And then hopefully producing other games that we have kind of in the back roster that are just waiting to get funded, because it does take a lot of work and a lot of money to make the games that we want to make. So
yeah.
it's a very
That's
big
awesome.
passion project. I've always been very attached and attracted to passion projects. So being able to work on the runestones the minute that I got to see the scripts, and then I could see between how Quinn would talk about it and how Atkins would talk about it, that it was something that they very deeply cared about. And there's a very solid message that's being tried. Can't talk today, trying to be said. And I think it's something that's very important to see in comics, not only for younger readers, well, young as in like a young adult reader, as well as, just anyone that's able to comprehend the book when they pick it up. It's a very good message. And so it was very easy to jump on a project like Elders of the Runestone.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I appreciate that. It looks like you've been drawing Lilith and Morrigan, correct?
Yes, my favorite characters, some of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's what it is with people that are trapped in like underworld areas, like Nightcrawler. He was trapped
Yeah,
in the underworld for a while. Morgan and Lilith trapped in the underworld for a while.
yeah.
Oh boy,
Oh, Hellboy,
I have
yes.
a type again for favorite characters.
So cool. Well, that's awesome. You should are you a Castlevania person?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I actually, I
If
don't
you
know if I
said
can say that
no,
or not.
this meeting
What?
was over. Sorry.
Uh-huh.
It's like if you said no, this meeting was over.
Oh.
No, I'm a huge
I
Castlevania.
mean,
So
no, I love Castlevania. I love the art for it. One of the opportunities that I would have loved, but it was just such a tight schedule, is the Netflix Castlevania series. The
Yeah.
concept art position, they actually like interviewed me a couple times for it.
are you kidding?
And they were very sweet. It's just they had a very intense schedule, and it was for multiple things. And it was I was just humbled just for the opportunity to, be like, hey, you're considered. I'm like, oh my gosh. Especially
Wow.
you see
Well,
the other artists that, got picked to do the concept art for it. But things like that, it's just you never know where you end up. And one of the things that I love about SCAD is, I think it was Rashad that actually recommended me for that, and just the connections that the professors have. And so my biggest takeaway from SCAD is just, kind of carrying that torch, where if you get into this professional field and you have all of these different teachers that are more like mentors than teachers, that really show you the way with care, instead of just being like, this is how you draw that, and this is where your perspective line is, don't ever forget it, get
hmm.
out of the door. They're like, no, well, what if you did this with the perspective line? What if you shook things up and made it some crazy fisheye angle, but then you put, some sort of a joke within that? and then you kind of expound upon it, and you actually care to teach the hows and whys of storytelling and, all of these different elements to make a good composition. So
Yeah.
it's wonderful to be able to be an art director and sort of teach those kind of things to the people that are underneath me, and just artists that are younger. And it kind of feels like you're passing on this torch of, this is how I was taught to be a professional artist in this regard for this sort of careerscape. So I want to always kind of put the way that I feel like Atkins taught me, where you're putting your knowledge forward and sharing it instead of trying to gatekeep it, I guess, in a way.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, it makes a lot of sense because Atkins is or Robert as I call him. He's yeah, he's one of the most well, he's like, like you in a lot of ways. He also is extremely like exactly what you said, very kind and a loving person and very genuine and trying to guide and care for people and make sure that he gets the best that he has to guide them along the way. So
Atkins is fantastic. I agree.
You guys are awesome.
I'm also jealous of his hair. So
I was like, man, we should just do these calls regularly.
Yeah, I was just hyping each other.
Like, who else can we have join? Like, who needs a good day? And we'll just
right.
Like,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So yeah. Try to think like so with the sorry, were you saying something? Did someone say?
No. Well, I was going to say, unless you had another question, but I do want to, we probably want to wrap this up pretty quick, but I do want to go ahead and talk about our Kickstarter. Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's one big thing that we do want to talk about. So we are running a Kickstarter for Elders of the Runestone Volume 2. So we've talked about how we had the first volume that was issues 1 through 4. That's already printed. It's already done. And then, of course, we had Naomi on to do issues 5 through 8 as they are now collected into a volume 2. And that's what we're running currently on. It's live on Kickstarter, and we're currently in week 3 of that.
Should I show the screen for that real quick?
Yeah.
Not to cut you off, Naomi. Am I okay to share that?
You're good. It's far more important than Morgan, unfortunately.
I don't. Well, she's pretty awesome. Okay, so good. One sec. Let me switch screens.
I've been drawing Nightcrawler, by the way, like as you guys have been.
All right, so send it to me.
I will.
Hey,
all right.
he's right here, Atkins. He's always nearby.
Yeah, he's always near me. That's awesome.
All right, did I do it?
Yes. Okay, cool. All right.
Okay.
So, so we've been running. We've started Elders of the Runestone. It has 11 days to go as of today. So we have just about a week and a half almost of time left for people to back the project. And when we say back the project, what we're trying to get is funding for the printing of the book. All of Naomi's work is the interior art for the project. And those 4 issues, it's all done. It's ready to go to the printer. It's 112 pages of content for the book. And you can scroll through and see all of the details about the project and all the reward tiers. You can find the link to the Elders of the Runestone Kickstarter through profiles in our Instagram and the Elders or runestonecomic.com. And you can find the link there as well. Or you can just search Elders of the Runestone on the Kickstarter.com website. And it'd be the fastest way to go to it.
When I saw the homepage this morning without logging in, it was one of the featured ones.
It was. They featured it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What? That's so cool.
I wasn't aware of that.
We're famous. Yes.
We did it. No, that'll help too. So as soon as it gets featured. So I don't have any doubt that we'll hit our campaign goal and that we'll get funded. The biggest thing now is just kind of spreading the word. And if we can hit some of those stretch goals, then what that does is goes towards funding. We've already got work done on issues 9 through 12, and we want to wrap up really this 12 issue arc that really helps kind of showcase where these characters are going. We've got a whole slew of covers for the series of 5 through 8, and this is like a cool spotlight of Neto Diaz, who's a good friend of mine that worked on G.I. Joe. He's working on X-Men right now for Marvel, like the main series title of X-Men. issues 4 through 7. He's doing fill-ins for Ryan Stegman on X-Men, and he did issue 8 cover for us, and he did the, yeah, you can scroll up to it here.
It's coming.
So close.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, so issue 8 with Adder in hand. And then you saw down there the penciled cover will be the cover for the collected volume 3, which we're really excited about. So yeah, so he's a good friend of ours, and he's helping a lot with Elders of the Runestone also. So we're really excited to have someone of his awesome caliber working with the project. So let's see, anybody that can help contribute to it, you can back it and get volume 1 and 2 if you missed out on the first volume. So we've got copies of that available to go out. Again, that's already printed, ready to go. Volume 2, as soon as this is funded, will be printed. And as soon as the Kickstarter is done, this is going to the printer. So that's one awesome thing about this Kickstarter, is that all the work is done. So there's so many Kickstarters where it funds and they're like, all right, we'll keep you updated. And you wait 6 months, a year, and you're like, where's this thing? And then you get an update and you're like, oh yeah, that was something I contributed to a long time ago. So yeah, luckily this is something that we've been able to really kind of put our money where our mouth is. We just really believe in this project, and it was something that we had Naomi working on a long time ago, and we just really wanted to make sure that this was done, ready to go. So we're really excited about it. We're really excited for everybody to see it.
Yeah. This is some of it's small on the screen, but this is some of Naomi's awesome artwork that she did.
Yeah.
Such fond memories.
Yeah. And the coloring was for most of the volume was done by Luis Antonio Delgado, who is also the colorist for the Ninja Turtles Last Ronin, all that artwork, which has been like one of the best-selling Ninja Turtles comics ever. So it's
yeah, we should do a post like specifically spotlighting Lewis too. So just a heads up, Quinn. Yeah, so we just kind of wanted to wrap up with that and just really spotlight the Kickstarter as it's coming up, and hopefully everybody can get a chance to check that out. And those who have helped us with this and contributed so far, thank you so much. We really do appreciate all the support. And let's see. Here, real quick, Quinn, if you want to stop sharing your screen, reshare, but this time clicks with the sound on the right-hand side of the share, and then go ahead and play the video at the top of the Kickstarter. That'd be awesome.
So how do I do that? Oh, share sound.
So smooth.
Okay. Share. Am I sharing now?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you can go and play the video. That'd be cool. Full screen.
So good.
All right, very cool. Awesome. Yeah, one thing we didn't talk about, we don't have to go on too long about it, but was it fun to do the characters in chibi version?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I make like predominantly I make so many chibis. It's like my absolute favorite thing to draw. I think I can kind of show it over here, but you'll see that like this. No, it's terrible. Anyways, this whole shelf beside me is just like a lot of my sticker work,
Yeah,
and it's all just like thousands and thousands of stickers. Stickers and stickers.
just like chibis, yeah, chibi stuff.
Yeah. Well, actually, and we have that's one of our add-ons that people can get if they want.
Yeah.
Is that we have all the chibi characters of the heroes and the villains from RuneStone, from Elders of the RuneStone. People
Yeah,
can grab those too that
all that
Naomi
was
did.
done by Naomi. Yeah. All right. Well, we know Naomi's got busy plans with lots of friends coming over for game night. So
Yes.
Matt, Naomi, thanks so much for your time tonight. It was so awesome congratulating you and complimenting you for an hour.
As you are.
I hope you don't mind.
No, it was a little hard, but I think I got through it.
Yeah. No, ultimately, like, thank you so much for the opportunity that you gave us to work with you. It was just
And
so
thank
awesome.
you guys.
And we're so excited that this is finally coming out and you get a chance to show it to everybody and talk about how awesome you are too.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. You're the best. So
You
yeah.
guys.
So
So,
we
oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, yeah, so just if we didn't mention it before, it goes this the Kickstarter campaign goes till the end of September. So September 30th is the cutoff. So
Mhm.
act now before it's too late.
Yep.
Um
And then,
and
how can people find your work the best way? How do you prefer people check
yes.
out your stuff, Naomi?
Let's see. I think the most active that I'm on, if it's not on Twitter, I'm starting a TikTok page. I have it already set up. I just need to start like actually promoting on it. I'm not very savvy with social media as much anymore, but I still have a lot of my artwork archived on Instagram. I have it on Blue Sky, I think. But predominantly reaching me is through like Twitter or TikTok now.
Okay, so
Okay.
Twitter and then like your website where you do sales, right? So where's that
Mhm.
at?
Oh, that's on my, it's a Etsy. It's an Etsy shop. I'm a Etsy partner.
Okay.
And it's still all under Lights in the Sky with an E on the end.
Okay. So Lights in the Sky, E at the end on
Mhm.
Etsy, and we can
Yep.
post links to that.
Yep.
Yep.
And Lights in the Sky E at the end, also on Instagram, TikTok. That's how we people can
Just
find it.
about everywhere. So you can
All
find
right.
me.
Okay. And there's links to it. There's links to you too, just so everybody knows on our Kickstarter page. We mentioned you
Mhm.
several times, and there's links to you there too. So
Yep. All good.
All right, cool. Well, thank you very much for joining us, everybody. That's it for tonight. And check out our stuff. We really appreciate everybody hanging in there and all the support you give it.
Bye,
okay.
everybody. Thank
Bye
you.
everybody.